Hi, this is Miss Wright, and these are my notes on the Prince's speech from Romeo and Juliet, Act 1. And the prince enters the scene after a melee has broken out in the town. It was started by servants. Benvolio tries to stop it. Tybalt comes in and he makes the situation worse. A big fight ensues. Lord Capulet and Lord Montague come running out of their homes and into the streets. One of them is still in his nightgown, it appears, and they call for their swords. And so the whole town, it seems, is in the midst of this fight. The prince enters with his entourage. He's on horseback and he is trying to get their attention. But they are so bloodthirsty, so engaged in not so engaged in fighting that no one listens to him. So when it says rebellious subjects, enemies to the peace, profaners of this neighbor stained steel, the steel refers to the swords. They are drawing blood from one another. And so the stain on the steel is the blood of the neighbors. Will they not hear? He says this because he's talking, but no one's listening. Usually, when your royal leader comes in, everybody snaps to attention. They haven't even noticed that he's in the vicinity. He calls them beasts because he feels that they're acting like animals that quench the fire of your pernicious rage, which is a great um, use of figurative language, but their hatred to each other is like a fire that is destroying this town, that is just going from building to building and laying waste to the town. So it's actually a really great image. With purple fountains issuing from your veins. Obviously, the purple fountains that come from veins would refer to blood, but that's a nice piece of imagery also. On pain of torture from those bloody hands. Blood on the hands is an image that we saw in the prologue and we will see again later on. Throw your mistempered weapons to the ground and hear the sentence of your moved prince. Mistempered here is a weapon that is being used for the wrong purpose. Usually, mistempered steel means that the steel is not up to par. It's not going to last. But here, mistempered weapons refers to the fact that they are using their weapons to hurt people that they should be friendly with. Weapons should be used to defend against enemies, not defend against neighbors. And hear the sentence of your moved prince. Sentence means pronouncement or edict, verdict. And moved prince means that he's upset. He's irate at this point. So he's letting them know he's very upset with what's going on in terms of their behavior. Three civil brawls bred of an airy word. The word airy in this context means light, trivial, light as air, meaningless, trite, unimportant. They keep starting fights over unimportant things. And if you think back to how the fight started at the beginning, it's shall I bite my thumb at him? Meaning, shall I give him the finger? Shall I show him disrespect? It was not over anything substantial at all. By thee, O Capulet and Montague, even though the servants start the fight, the prince holds Capulet and Montague, the leaders of their families, as responsible for the violence that's gone on. And rightly so, because as the leaders of their families, the heads of their families, they should set the tone to let everyone in the family know the violence is unacceptable. And apparently they haven't done that, and we can see it because they too run into the square and participate in the fight. Have thrice, thrice is a word that means three, disturbed the quiet of our streets and made Verona's ancient citizens, Verona's old people, cast by their grave beseeming ornaments, take off their beautiful, dignified clothing, to wield old partisans in hands as old, to wield old weapons, to swing around old weapons, in this case swords, in their old arthritic hands. Cankered means here arthritic or rusty, How would your hands be rusty? Well, they're probably stiff from arthritis. If ever you disturb the streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. So the prince gives an ultimatum that if anyone is caught disturbing the peace again, they will lose their lives. Um, for this time all the rest depart away, and you, Capulet, shall go along with me, and Montague come you this afternoon. He wants to take each man separately and have a strong conversation probably with each man. He doesn't take them together because if you know anything about people in conflict, they'll probably just start having a fight. So he wants to reason with each man separately. To know our farther pleasure in this case, meaning to know what else um, I want to discuss about this situation. My pleasure is my will or my desire. To Old Freetown, our common judgment place. And it sounds like that's probably the court or wherever he makes his legal decisions. Once more on pain of torture from those once more on pain of death, all men depart. So he reiterates the death sentence and lets them know that he is extremely serious about what's going on. Okay, I just want to take you through some of the literary terms that you might have noticed or should have noticed as you were reading. Rebellious subjects, enemies to the peace is a type of direct address. He's speaking specifically to them, even though they're not listening. Neighbor stained steel is imagery. You can see the blood on the swords. Will they not hear is a rhetorical question. The fact that he calls them beasts could be considered a metaphor. That quench the fire of your pernicious rage is imagery. Purple fountains issuing from your veins is imagery, which goes into the metaphor. Um, the purple fountain is something you can see, but it's also a metaphor for blood. It represents blood. And then all of that leads us to the theme of violence. On pain of torture from those bloody hands, more imagery, more violence, throw your mistempered weapons to the ground and hear the sentence of your moved prince. The fact that when he's saying this, or any actor would be saying this, would be reaching for, very strong emotion, great anger, is a type of pathos. So pathos doesn't have to be just crying, but any extreme emotion, and emotion that can affect the audience or should affect the audience. So we should know by the end of this speech that he's quite serious about what he's saying. 3 civil brawls, bred of an airy word by thee, old Capulet and Montague, have thrice disturbed the quiets of our streets, and made Verona's ancient citizens, ancient here could be a form of hyperbole. They're old. I don't know if they're ancient. Cast by their grave beseeming ornaments to wield old partisans in hands as old. So the repetition of the word old is an example of epanellipsis, which is repetition after intervening words. Cankered is also epanellipsis. Peace and hate are opposites, so that's antithesis. If ever you disturb our streets again, your life shall pay the forfeit of the peace is a conditional statement. It's an if-then statement. If one thing happens, then this will happen. And it also goes to the theme of death. For this time all the rest depart away, and you, Capulet, shall go along with me. And Montague, come you this afternoon to know our farther pleasure in this case, to Old Freetown, our common judgment place. Once more on pain of death, all men depart. So it ends with a reference back to the theme of death in the play. Okay, I hope that this is some help to you. Make sure you have all these notes in your script, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.